Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode in the Event Playbook Coffee Chat series. In this series, we are joined by Ubelejit Dandison. Ubelejit Dandison is a storyteller who is working at the intersection of events, content, and community building. So far, she has led teams at companies like Bunce, Smarketers Hub, and she does all of this to create engaging content that builds trust and drives meaningful conversations. At the moment, she works at as a community leader at Marketers Hub, where she designs community initiatives and also fosters a supportive space for forward thinking African marketers to sharpen their skills, advance their careers, and access global opportunities. What you'll find really interesting is that Ubelejit is also immersed in watching films and bringing characters to life through film and prose work. She also talks about it in this episode. Now, for this episode, we're going to be talking about something really, really important for events and programs, and that is designing audience and attendee experience. In the conversation that follows, you'll see how Ubelejit and I get to talk about audience experience, how the event goes beyond content and agenda. So stay tuned and watch the rest of the conversation. See you inside.
Welcome back to my channel.
All right. Hi, Ubelejit. Thank you so much for joining in for this next episode. We're so happy to have you here. But before we get started, if you could please introduce yourself and then we can go on to um, right on to talking about events.
Hi, Kando. Thanks for having me. My name is Ubelejit Dandison, and I like to introduce myself as a storyteller because that's who I am. I'm a storyteller, and then for work, I am an events, community, and content marketer. Been in content marketing for the last 5 years now, and currently work as community leaders, marketers. That's pretty much about me. But outside of work, as I said earlier, I create films. I love to watch movies and also create films. So, yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Great to know. I think it's a first for us here on the episode. Someone who does something aside events, creating films as well. I'm sure everyone else would like to see some of them and just to know how interesting they are coming from you. Okay. All right. So for this conversation, we're going to be focusing on the third aspect of events, and that is how memorable or why memorable events go beyond content and agenda. So we know that there are little things that make an event really stand out. The program plan might be great, everything can work out well, but um, there are also little things that make an event successful or make an event memorable for everyone who's attending. And that's basically what we're going to be discussing today. The very first question is personal, and that will lead us to other questions going forward. So the first is, what is the most memorable event experience you have attended or hosted?
Okay, so most memorable events I have attended or hosted myself. Do I answer both or just one?
Um, Both, or whichever works for you, because there's a follow-up question after that. Yeah.
That's all right. Okay, so for the most memorable events I have attended, that's AFRIF. AFRIF is Africa International Film Festival. It's annually in Lagos State, Nigeria, and that's the most memorable event I have attended, and for a couple reasons. That the the networking opportunities, the film screenings, most importantly, the networking opportunities for me. You getting to meet other industry experts and get to meet other people who are also starting out in the film industry. The conversations that go on, right, in the classrooms, because the opportunities to also attend AFRIP as a student. So those are some of the things that have made that event memorable for me. And for events that I've hosted, I think I'm going to speak to the most recent, which is the live pitch teardown that I hosted for marketers, right, in Smarketers Hub and outside of the Marketers Hub community. And why it's memorable for me is because of the message. You could tell that there was a need for the message of the event or the topic, right? Whichever makes our audience understand. It was on how to send cold pitches, right, to recruiters, to edible marketers get in the door of global opportunities or opportunities in general. And another thing that made that event memorable for me was the depth of knowledge of the speakers. It really made the event also memorable. It's one thing to have a topic, but it's also another thing to have speakers who know their onion. And this is beyond popularity, but knowing that they actually experience and can pour out of that experience to other people. So those two things really made the event memorable for me: depth of knowledge of the speakers and the need for the message of that particular event.
Oh, that's beautiful. This made me remember. I think I saw a LinkedIn post sometime, and someone asked, "What are two things that always stand out for you when you are attending events?" So at that moment, I wasn't answering as someone who organized events myself. I was answering as an attendee. So there are two key things that always stand out for me if I'm looking just to confirm if an event was memorable for me. One thing is how the host carries every person along. So that's also one key thing that I try to do whenever I'm hosting an event myself. I try to make sure that anyone who's going to be the host would make it lively, would also make it not to go off point so much or trying to put in a lot of jokes, well, because we want to stay within the context of the event, but it's lively and you're carrying everyone along. And the second thing that always stands out for me is how much the users are pouring out their wealth of experience, like you've also mentioned. For speaker management, well, that's another part of event organization on its own, but knowing speakers who truly can share what they know, share their own experience is wonderful. I've been part of an event where I know one of the speakers was just, everyone was sleeping. I would just say sleeping because it was boring. The person knew what he was saying, but he could not convey that information. His slides were on point, so those who really wanted to listen were just looking at the slides and taking notes. But he was not clearly pushing out that information to everyone who was listening. So for me, two things I think would be how the host carries everyone along and how the speakers are able to convey their knowledge or their experience to those in attendance. And then for me, the most memorable event I have attended, I think, would be Oscar Fest 2022. I attended as a speaker, but I I think that was the very first event I had attended in Lagos, and from registration to seating arrangements to how the volunteers um, just catered for everyone from start to finish. I learned a lot of things from that event, and that's also one other thing, like how the team is able to properly gather everyone around and make sure they are attended to throughout the event. So yeah, your points are really valid. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, now just speaking a little bit about the speakers also has to do with event content, right? In the content of the event, of course, speakers are involved. So beyond event content and event agenda, what is one thing that makes an event really stand out for you?
Okay, just as you said, every part of an event actually contributes to making an event memorable. But if I was to look through, I'd say that two things stand out for me. It's a personal choice now. Two things. One, the message. I would always be a big advocate for understanding why you are gathering people. Why are we bringing people together for this event? What value are they supposed to take home at the end of this event? What feeling do we want to convey? So for me, the message is something that is the first thing that, okay, besides having speaker lineups that are popular, right? That could be like a side attraction or an attraction to the event. Let's have a message that is needful, that is important. Let's have a message that also thinks about your target audience, right? So that actually informs even the kind of speakers you would invite, the depth of knowledge that they have. So the message of the event, what am I going to get out of it? That's actually what one of the things that make the event memorable. Another thing that makes an event memorable, because yes, you're going to say, okay, what if the message is also part of the content? But another thing that makes events memorable for me is networking opportunities. Trust me, there's so much that comes out from networking at events. It could be you having meeting someone, right? A genuine connection that could in turn lead to maybe a collaboration in the future. And as an event host, one of the things that makes me happy about events are the people that we meet, the possibility of introducing people and people to opportunities is something that I keep saying. I love to meet people. So when I go to events, I'm looking at the caliber of people at the event. Who am I going to meet? Nobody actually knows who they're going to meet at an event. But you go there and you meet someone, and tomorrow you're collaborating on something big. That for me makes an event memorable. And if you look at it everywhere, whatever you're involved in, whether you want to look back years ago when you were in secondary school, you're going to have a memory of someone that made a difference. Either made a difference or was just a troublesome person, right? So people give us memories. It could also be a teacher that was a very great teacher who maybe knew how to convey their message, or their classes know how to teach well, or a teacher that was very mean. So people make memories. And so beyond content and agenda, one of the things that makes events memorable are the networking opportunities, the people that you meet, and the collaborations that could be. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much. I really liked what you said. To stand for an event to stand out for you is connecting people to people and then people to opportunities. That made me remember another event I attended in that was Product Dive, the Dive conference, and at one point during the event, they had a speed networking series. And for that speed networking, there were 50 people who were, I think 50 or 30 people who were allowed into a room at the same time. And there was a timer on each table. You don't know who you're meeting, you don't know who you're connecting with. And in 5 minutes, you're only allowed to share conversations with them. There are volunteers standing there that make sure that you are not talking to the same person on the next table. So in those 5 minutes, it taught me to. I didn't even know what I was doing at that point because, for one thing, I was clueless. It was the first time I attended an event that something like that was happening. So the first time I didn't get it right because we were just saying, "Oh, my name is this, I do that," and then when I was eavesdropping on other people's conversation, and so the next person I met, I think that was where I met Tech Mom. Yes, I think her name is Adenike Tech Mom, and I just told her, "Oh, I'm working on this with my team, and I know you say you're a product manager. Of course, that's why you're attending this event. What can I do to improve this? What can I do to improve that?" We had a beautiful conversation, and after that, the next person I met, I asked the same question, and he also asked me questions. So in that period of networking, it wasn't just about saying, "Oh, this is what I do," or "My name is this, my name is that." Those few minutes are important because you don't know where you're going to meet the person tomorrow. You also don't know if the person is probably going to hook you up for greater opportunities in the future. So that's one part of the event that is memorable just beyond content and agenda. Another thing I would also like to add is the little things like organization. So, for physical events, for example, how do you make sure that registration is going smoothly? How do you make sure that your attendees are not confused? Are there signs if the event is a large one? Are there persons who are showing them to their seats? Those little kind gestures also make things memorable. Sometimes the attendees may not even remember what was said, but just because they hear, oh, this person is organizing an event, I just want to feel, I just want to have that sense of belonging whenever I attend this event. And that's also something that can make an event stand out or make an event memorable. We'll now go on to the third question. And I may have hinted on this just a little bit, but what small details often make the biggest difference for an attendee, like the entire attendee experience? What are small details for every event that make the biggest difference for every attendee?
Okay, so I'd like to say ambience. And this is what I mean by ambience, which is something you've already hinted on. You want to communicate the feeling of your event to every team member right from the get go, right? Because you could have a beautiful lineup of speakers and your protocols are actually very rude, which can either affect an attendee or a speaker, right? Now we're talking about if it's a live event. Ambience, one of the things that contributes to ambience is it could be the whole decoration, right? It could be the whole decoration that contributes to the ambience of an event. It could be the music. So all of those little details can be overlooked in the process of trying to outreach the speakers, trying to do social promotions for the event, and then you could you could overlook things like ticketing, you could overlook things like the ambient, like maybe decoration, you could overlook things like the music, right? You can also overlook things like how your protocol, right? People in charge of maybe ushering people to their seats, how they understand the event, the feeling of the event, and how they portray that feeling to the attendees. Like I said, you can have great speaker lineup and you think everything is going on, but someone maybe in ushering is being very rude to an attendee. And let's be frank, everyone in a room can have similar but very different experiences
Yes.
at an event. Everyone can have similar. We come to the event, and oh, that event was great. But if you ask people, tell me a little bit what made this event great, you find out that people have different experiences, but they were all in one room. So you want to communicate that feeling. We want to communicate this feeling of either empathy or luxury, right? Or ease to every team member and ensure that everyone is in that spirit. So these are some things that I think can be overlooked. The ambience, beyond content, beyond agenda. And if it's for a virtual event, you're thinking about what tools will be easy for my attendees to use, right? You're thinking about how the host can manage everyone in the room, especially for a virtual event, because it's easier for the host to communicate with people, right? If it's a physical event. But if it's a virtual event, you want to know how to carry everyone because I can log into that event and just log out, right? It's easy to do that. So you also want to have a host who knows how to manage the room, whether it's a physical event or whether it's a virtual event. So I think that these are some things that could be overlooked in the process of trying to promote the event, trying to outreach. So yeah, that's what I sum up as ambience of the event.
Okay. So just a question there. Do you think that speakers should be given the same treatment as attendees? I'll give an example. So I attend an event, and when I get to the registration booth, they're like, go and register there, go and write your name there. But then I say, oh, I'm a speaker. Ah, so welcome, ma. Sorry, ma. So how do we solve these kind of situations? Because it has happened many times. It has happened many times. Does it mean that event managers are not doing their job right? Or does it mean that the volunteers just have this preference for not treating everyone the same way?
So it's a common thing that happens. There's this thing of, oh, the highly preferred, right? Permit me to use the word high table. You know when you go for Nigerian weddings and they tell you, oh, that's for high table, and you dare not go there. It's like, no, 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 that's a reserved seat, right? But one thing, that's why I said that at the start, that you need to communicate the feeling of your event to every team member. Like every team member should carry that spirit, right? So it's important that we treat our guests right. But you don't also want to neglect your attendees, because truthfully, your guests are not going to speak to an empty room. They are there because people are coming to learn from them, right? So it's important that we treat guests, like we treat attendees well. So it is now the event manager's job, or the project lead, whoever is in charge of that event, to communicate, this is what this event, this is the feel of this event. Everything has a feel, right? A story you read has a feel. Although your audience are there, or the attendees are there to learn, you also do not know who is in the room, right? You do not know who is in the room, their CEOs in the room, depends on what kind of event, but they are important people in the room. They are dignitaries in the room. So you should treat your audience as, or your attendees as dignitaries, just as much as you treat your speakers, your guest speakers, right, as dignitaries. So that's my take on it. Make everyone on the team aligned to the feeling of the event and how you want to portray that to both the attendee and the speakers.
Valid point, very valid point. Okay, and this now takes us to the next question, which is also, I think we're just touching each of the questions individually, but this one really is about an experience element. So, what is one thing you feel that organizers overlook or underestimate whenever they are organizing an event? What is one thing that they constantly overestimate? I mean, for attendee
Is the
experience,
word would, okay? Would it be overestimate or underestimate, please?
underestimate.
Okay, so I think we mentioned some of it, which would be organization. Really, that would be it for me. Beyond ticketing, organization. Let's talk about. Let's give an example for a virtual event. I've attended an event where the speaker, like the team, didn't do a run through, like they didn't check out the tools that they were going to use to host the event. And at the event, we keep having people not being able to join the event. And you know that you have a registration, like you had about 400 people register for this event, and you're using um, this particular tool, trying not to mention the name of the tool now, and you're using this particular tool, and at 100 capacity max, it's keeping people out. And there was no provisions made to maybe stream the event on YouTube, so that people who are not able to be in the room can continue watching the event on YouTube and drop their questions there. You should also have like people who manage the your like who are in charge of technicalities, right? That's why it's important that you delegate. One person cannot run an event. So there are some parts of your event that you have to delegate and have people in charge of these things. So that particular situation could have been averted if they had someone in charge of everything, technicalities, ensuring that whatever tools you're using, right, you've test run it even before the event day, so that you can have, and especially if it's a paid event, as that one was. So you can't make people pay for an event and then make them uncomfortable because there was a particular thing you didn't fix, which could be ticketing, right? And you even attend some events and you find out, like a physical event now, and you find out that ticketing is a problem, right? Ticketing is a problem on site. So these are some things that event managers should look through. and ensure that beyond your content, beyond your agenda, you put in place some of these things. How am I ensuring that my attendees don't have a problem with maybe the ticketing, the ticket, the whether it's an event tool, whether it's a platform for ticketing, it shouldn't be a problem. How am I sure that the tool that I'm using to host this event, right, will be able to accommodate everybody and all my attendees can use this tool comfortably and enjoy the experience from beginning to the end without being cut short at any point in time. So these are some things that I think that in the process of trying to, fix like what I call it, the big things, like some of us will think, right? We overlook those small things like organization and then even the ambience, as we mentioned, because they're all linked together.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. We are slowly wrapping up. I'm just close to the last question. We've talked about content. We've talked about the event organization. We've talked about little details that make a big difference. We've also talked about what event managers can do better to design great experiences for the audience. So, how do you then balance I think we've also touched on it, but just to recap most of the things that we've said so far, how do you balance content delivery and then audience design, sorry, audience experience rather? How do you balance content delivery and audience experience? How do you make sure that everyone is carried along? Just a summary of everything we've talked about, because I know it touches on making sure the volunteers are teaching are treating everyone right, making sure the host is carrying everyone along, but just a summary of what we've talked about and then any other thing you'd like to share.
Okay, so I'd say think about your events from like think about it wholly from a wholesome point of view. Think about, and what will help you do this is an event brief. I always recommend event briefs. I do event briefs. When I'm thinking about an event, you may have an idea, but I don't know if it happens to any other person. But once you begin to think on paper, it becomes clearer,
Yes.
right? You think about, okay, the topic, the goal. And when you're thinking about your event from a wholesome perspective, you're thinking about not just the business goals, you're thinking about the audience goals. You must always have your audience in mind, right? What is the value of this event? Is this event promising to our target audience? What is the business goal? Because let's not forget that whether you want to promote a product, whatever your event wants to promote or do for your business, think about it. And when you do that, it makes you know what kind of speakers, right, am I going to invite? Um, Based on this goal, based on this topic, who is the best person to invite to speak? It's going to let you know about capacity, hall capacity. How many persons are we inviting? What do we anticipate for this event? That's what thinking on paper does. It just helps you see everything, and then you know who to delegate to, right? As we've already mentioned, you can't. You're an event manager, but you're in charge of hiring every other person that ensures that that event experience comes out excellently, right? So I always advise people think on paper. By the time you think on paper, you know what to do. You know the goal of the event. You know who it is targeting. You know who to reach out to in terms of guests. You know um, how what to delegate to people, right? And it just gives you a clear picture of how your events should be. So that's what I'm going to see. That's how you're able to balance the attendee experience, right, and content delivery. It's from proper planning. I think that's what all of this thing is like. What this event brief I'm talking about drives proper planning. So that's it for me.
That's a beautiful concluding point. Thank you. So, proper planning makes sure that the event content is delivered well and that the attendees have a great experience throughout. So, I think what you said about thinking on paper, a post I made on LinkedIn today, just I took a snapshot of different journals, books that I just used to write? Well, because writing down things and planning it properly just helps you clearly know if you're doing things right, what's the next step to take, what's the next thing to do, and how to get to that goal, or the success you're trying to reach. So thinking on paper is one thing that also leads to proper planning, and that would make an event go smoothly. So yeah, this has been a very wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Belejit. Thank you for your time. Um, how can we contact you? How can those who are watching reach out to you if there are any questions, or just to connect with you on other social platforms?
Okay, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, I'm pretty sure that you could get my LinkedIn profile and then share with us. Then you can also find me on other social platforms as Ubelejit Dandison. So it's Ubelejit Dandison everywhere. It's, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. But I mostly use Instagram and LinkedIn. And yeah, if you want to also find out other things that I do, you can check out my YouTube and it's still Ubelejit Dandison.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would add the links to that in the description, so anyone who takes a look can reach out to you. Thank you again for coming on the Event Playbook Coffee Chat series. And possibly in the future, I hope to have you in more conversations around this as well. Thank you.
Thank you too. Just as final words for event managers, I'm going to say think about your event as content itself because it's a content format, right? Think about it as storytelling, and you want to be empathetic while you're doing that. So don't just think about what do I want to like. Don't think about it from the perspective of business goals only, but think about it from the perspective of attendee goals. What do I want the audience to get out of this event? For everything you do as a marketer, lead with empathy. When you lead with empathy, you're able to speak to the emotions of your target audience and get them to see why this event you're inviting them to is valuable. So that would be like my final words to event managers, people, and anyone like looking to plan an event. So yes, and it's been interesting coming on this conversation. Thank you very much, Kanda, for inviting me. And yeah, look forward to more chats, more conversations with you.
Awesome. Thank you again, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you too. Bye.